My name is Kwiaahwah Jones. I was born and raised on Haida. I'm an artist, a curator, and a tattoo artist. And I've worked for the last decade, I guess, to not only work to understand the forms of Haida art, but to understand the stories and the sophisticated culture behind that. And that's driven me to have a responsibility to make sure that I share that in a good way with the rest of the world. As an artist, I have portrayed a couple of the very powerful supernatural beings of the Haida. And on the days that I completed these works, like depicting Sacred One standing and moving, who is the supernatural being who holds up Haida, I did a depiction of him, and then that day that I completed it, there was a huge earthquake on Haida. So, and then I also did a depiction of Jilakun, who's the mother of all the Eagle people, and she's associated with these supernatural beings. And the day I finished her image, there was also another earthquake, and I happened not to be there at the time, but the days that I finished these artworks, there was this vivid, almost supernatural connection to the events. Trying to decide how to tell this story of how earthquakes happen in Haida. I had to really seek out and study the oral histories of our people. And there's so many elements you can include. There's so many different details and ways of kind of depicting them. But I thought, since he gained this supernatural strength to be able to hold up Haida through this wasco skin, depicting a handsome wasco would be the best way of kind of telling this incredible story. Sacred One standing and moving was an ancestor that gained supernatural ability by trapping a wasco, so it's like a sea wolf that lived in a spirit lake, so it's a lake found behind Skidegate, and he bathed for power in the ocean to gain strength because all of his siblings disappeared, and it turned out that this wasco ate all of his siblings, and so he went and killed the wasco and skinned it, and as he skinned it, all of the remains of his siblings came out, and he brought them back to life in the story. And then he traveled about around Haida, visiting and showing everyone his supernatural strength through this wasco skin. And there was a time in our history where the supernaturals competed for strength to see who could hold up Haida. So they went to the town of Haida, which is Sunshine Town. It's just quite close to Skidegate. It's very central to the island, and they went to Haida, and there was this fire that the supernaturals would lay in, and how did it work? They competed to see who could hold up Haida. So there was another supernatural being called Stone Ribs, and Stone Ribs was part of the Eagle clan, and Sacred One standing and moving was part of the Raven clan. And so there was this kind of tension that was happening amongst the supernaturals because they really wanted to ensure that a raven won this competition to hold up Haida. And so they say Sacred One standing and moving won the competition through the strength of this wasco skin that he gained in this lake behind Skidegate. So it's quite a long, complex story about our ancestors and how Haida came to be. And they say Sacred One standing and moving stands on a copper box, and they don't say what's below that, but he stands on a copper box and has a pillar that comes from his chest, and that when he moves, there's an earthquake on Haida. And they say that all of the raven men of the Haida Nation are to say, don't spill the duck grease out of this clamshell. And so whenever there's a major earthquake, they say all the raven men speak to him to make sure that there's no more earthquakes. Being able to show with these incredible poles that were cut down by my grandfather and Bill Reed and Wilson Duff is exciting. These poles have been my go-to when I'm homesick, so being able to show with them and contribute to this space is pretty exciting for me as an artist. what I like about the poles, and even showing this story with the poles, is when you think about the strength and the spirit in these poles, they're quite profound. And so in Haida, I had the 7.7 earthquake in 2011. As many ancestral poles in the village, you know, they're decrepit, they're barely holding on, but none of them fell during this. So you think about the spirit of these poles, and you know, if there is an earthquake here, I think they'll be fine because, you know, we're updating the space, right? But I think that it's pretty exciting, and I think the structure of poles themselves and the way that they're set into the ground are meant to last through earthquakes, because we're, you know, an earthquake kind of capital of Canada, Haida. So I think we're in a really exciting time now in the world where it's really great to be Indigenous. It hasn't been that way maybe for a long time, but we're in this really great place in the world where we can reveal our culture and reveal this really sophisticated way of seeing the world and an ancient way of seeing the world. And I think that we have a lot of great opportunities, whether you're Haida or whether you're any culture, to really benefit from that type of knowledge. And really, there's a lot more magic, I would say, in our culture that I think is lacking in the Western world. So I think trying to bring that magic to the world through our art, through sharing our culture, through exhibitions, and through stories like this is really important.